Hi, good evening. My name's Chis Nidel. I live outside Washington, D.C. My background is in chemical engineering. I've got a master's degree in chemical engineering, and I'm also one of the attorneys that represented Brenda and the other plaintiffs in the ongoing lawsuit against the EPA under TSCA. And there are a couple things that I wanted to say. A lot of them have been said, so I want to focus on a few of the pro-fluoride points. And I just want to finish up one of the points that Michael Connett was raising when he was saying, if we look at the most vulnerable among us, which are clearly, when it comes to brain development, those are the fetal development stage and early infancy stage. The studies are clear that when you're exposed to fluoride during those two critical windows of brain development, that there's a high risk of particularly neurotoxicity. And at the same time, there is no benefit. So we're not doing a cost-benefit analysis there. We're imparting risk without adding any benefit in terms of any public health outcome that could be viewed as positive. But as far as the pro-fluoride talking points, a lot of which we've heard, the first one, the idea that fluoride is natural, arsenic and lead are both natural, right? We spend lots of money to remove arsenic and lead from our water, despite the fact that they're natural. And I don't think there's anyone here on this call that would willingly ingest any amount of arsenic or lead simply because it was natural. Nothing about that being natural makes it good for brain development. Second point that was raised earlier, that the ADA and all these various dental and medical groups have not come out against fluoride. The editors of the Journal of the American Medical Association have come out and said that they would recommend pregnant women avoid fluoride. Well, what does that do for the pregnant women or those women that are considering getting pregnant in your community? Especially when you're looking at the cost of filtration. A lot of people have talked about filtration, extremely difficult. It's costly. When you talk about whole house filters, you talk about filtering your ice supply, it becomes a challenge. Another related point, the CDC, we heard pro-fluoride people repeatedly hammering the CDC and saying, oh, they continue to support it. Well, they also say that the evidence of benefit is predominantly topical application to adult teeth. So the CDC that these pro-fluoride people continue to stand behind, the CDC itself says it only works to benefit teeth if it's applied topically to your adult teeth, not through ingestion, okay?
You're involved, I think in 2013, we listened to issues on fluoride in the water, 2016-17 as well. So this is our third go around with this topic. So I think one of the reasons that, anytime an issue is stopped for a couple of years, the reason it's brought back is because of potential new research. What new research in the last 3 years has been good to the point where we need to reconsider?
That is, I think, the question, because the fact of the matter is that in the last 3 to 4 years, starting in 2017, the two groups that Michael Connett mentioned, and I think Dr. Neary mentioned as well, the Element Study Group and the MIREX Study Group, both of those groups have done what's called a prospective cohort study. And that is a study on human beings rather than animals. And those are studies done, they're viewed as the next best thing to a randomized controlled trial, okay? And one of the points that I would make is that there is no randomized controlled trial that shows that fluoride has a benefit, okay? So we have these prospective cohort studies that just recently came out and in the last handful of years, and both of those studies are done at levels. Number one, they're done with fluoride biomarkers. So they looked at, for example, urinary fluoride levels in pregnant women. So they're not looking, trying to model or estimate exposure. They actually have measures of exposure. And what those two studies both showed is that the effects of fluoride, particularly during these two developmental windows, are comparable to that of lead and range anywhere from 2.5 to 8 IQ points, depending on the study and what the measures were that they were looking at. So, there has been a debate. And as you point out, there's been a debate that's gone on for years about fluoride. The evidence of neurotoxicity has been increasing to the point that we now have these two NIH-funded, extremely well-conducted, extremely peer and critically reviewed that all point in the same direction. When we have, to contrast that, the CDC saying that there is no benefit to ingesting this. And so we have a large amount of evidence of risk now culminating in these recent studies, coupled against very little, if any, evidence of benefit. And I know there was discussion of cities that show an increase in cavities when there's fluoride removed. There are also studies that show evidence in cities where fluoride is removed and there is no increase. So the studies on benefits are highly conflicting. You can look at that literature any way you choose, but the studies on risk are, at this point, very clear.
All right. One other thing. Have you heard of a book called The Devil's Poison?
No, I have not heard.
Okay.
I have litigated against the fertilizer industry in Florida, and I am very aware of Mosaic, the one who produces the majority of this fluoride waste product that's used for fluoridation. And, I've seen their rail cars coming out of their mines. So it is not a myth that this is largely generated as a waste product that has no place other than a landfill. And so we're putting it in our drinking water.
Well, again, I thank you for your testimony. Like I said, we on council, we need to look at, the last time we heard this issue and then now, and then try to figure out any new developments that have come along. So if there's anything you can share that way, we can talk to Brenda and others too.
Absolutely.
Okay, can I
Go
ask
ahead.
a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Would you characterize this as the same thing as, I believe asbestos was a byproduct, and so they were trying to sell it because it costs money to landfill or whatever, get rid of some of these byproducts. Would you characterize this the same as the asbestos situation where we found out years later, all these studies have finally come out how toxic the asbestos is to people?
Well, I think it's difficult to compare this directly to asbestos, but what I would say is the comparison where industry has a history of finding creative new uses for its waste products. And it's important to point out, I think you made the reference, that it's not just that it's a waste product, it's that it's a waste product that they have a liability for and they have to pay to remove. So originally fluoride was being released into the air by these factories in Florida. And in order to clean that up, they had to start consolidating it with scrubbers. And when they did that, then they needed to find a way to get rid of it. So it is this problem that the industry creates a waste and then they're looking for beneficial ways to use it. Another example was MTBE in gasoline. That was a waste stream that they found a use for to dilute the gasoline, and that caused a lot of groundwater problems. So I think the theme is something that we've seen before, where an industry has a waste product that's not only not making them money, but actually costing them money, and now they found a creative way to use it to their advantage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.